Bugs can be a nuisance. They can hurt you, annoy you, scare you, they can eat your food. They can even destroy your home. But if you work in a healthcare facility, you may encounter different kinds of bugs that are worse than mere pests. Viruses. Though too small to see with the naked eye, they can cause big trouble. They can destroy your health or even your life. These are the blood bugs. Blood. It can be very scary stuff, a virtual alphabet soup of disease-causing pathogens, what I like to call blood bugs. Now, two of the most threatening to you as a healthcare worker are the hepatitis B virus, or HBV, and the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. Hepatitis C, or HCV, is another important pathogen that can be transmitted by blood, but it's not as common as HBV. Now, before we start our orientation tour, I would like for you to meet my assistant, Felix. Now, Felix may look pretty scary, but he's actually quite harmless. Unlike Felix, you can't see the blood bugs, and they are far from harmless. You can see examples of their destructive power every day in a healthcare facility. A person infected with HIV may have no symptoms for years, yet most people infected with HIV will eventually develop AIDS. Early-stage symptoms include fever, fatigue, and diarrhea. As the virus continues to ravage the immune system, a pattern of repeated infections usually leads to eventual death. Though not as dreaded as HIV, HBV is a much greater risk for healthcare workers, infecting almost 9,000 a year and killing 200. The virus infects the liver and may cause mild to severe flu-like symptoms, or no symptoms at all. Though most cases can be treated successfully, hepatitis B sometimes leads to chronic liver problems and death. Both HBV and HIV are spread by sexual contact and contact with blood. This means you could unknowingly spread them to family, friends, and even unborn children. Hepatitis C is another virus that can be transmitted through blood-to-blood contact. It also can cause chronic liver disease and death. The problem with dealing with invisible blood bugs day in and day out is that, well, it's easy to become careless. After you. Well, we're off to a great start. Fred here is studying the Exposure Control Manual. A copy is available to you during your work shift. It tells you whether or not your job is covered by federal bloodborne pathogen standard. It also explains what measures are taken to reduce your risk of exposure, and it explains what procedures to follow in the event of an exposure incident.
So why do you have to be concerned about bloodborne diseases?
Have you ever fixed a clogged drain?
No.
Well, besides the gunk and the junk, there can be blood and other infectious substances down there. I have to take safety measures just as much as anyone working here.
OSHA's Bloodborne Pathogens standard explains how workers and employers can work together to substantially reduce or even eliminate the risk of contracting bloodborne diseases on the job. You're covered if it's reasonably anticipated that you could be exposed to blood or other potentially infectious materials as a result of performing your job duties.
What are other potentially infectious materials?
That's a good question, Susan. In a healthcare facility, HBV, HIV, and other pathogens may be present in blood and other materials such as semen, vaginal secretions, cerebrospinal fluid, synovial fluid, pleural fluid, peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, amniotic fluid, saliva in dental procedures, and any other body fluids visibly contaminated with blood. non-intact skin or organs from living or dead humans, cell tissue or organ cultures and other biological matter from laboratory experiments. Hi. Let's continue our tour and look for some things that you need to know about bloodborne diseases, like transmission and standard precautions, engineering controls, PPE, work practices, housekeeping, the hepatitis B vaccine, and what to do if you are exposed. Along the way, we'll take a look at the mistakes you can't afford to make and how you can prevent them.
Oh, excuse me, my allergies are killing me.
That's not all that might kill you. To infect you, bloodborne pathogens need to get inside your body. They can enter through the mucous membranes of your mouth, eyes, and nose. Never touch these areas with hands or gloves that may be contaminated. Remember, your hands are considered to be contaminated after removing gloves. Always wash them immediately. You'd think your skin would act as a barrier to pathogens. In reality, most people have tiny openings in their skin caused by dermatitis, acne, cuts, nicks, or skin abrasions. Try rubbing your hands with alcohol. If it stings, you have breaks in your skin that pathogens can enter. Of course, pathogens can also enter your body if you accidentally injure yourself with a sharp object that is contaminated with infectious material. Not only needles and scalpels, but broken glass and dental wire, anything that can pierce your skin. As you can see, there's no room for carelessness when you work with blood and body fluids, nor is there room for making assumptions about who is infected.
Hey, would you bring me some gloves?
Oh, Mary Ann, aren't you all grown up?
Oh, how are you, Mrs. Robar? I haven't seen you in years.
Well, you could say I'm still breathing in and out.
Oh.
But tell me about your mother.
Oh, never mind. Mrs. Robar's an old friend of the family. It's good to see you, too.
All kinds of people can carry bloodborne diseases, and you can't tell who they are just by looking at them or by taking their medical histories. They can be old or young, male or female, married or single, strangers or friends. And they can come from the inner city or from a small town. What's more, they may not even know they are infected. People can carry these diseases for many years while looking and feeling quite healthy. Yet all the while, their blood and body fluids may be highly infectious. That's why you must use standard precautions anytime you anticipate that you may come in contact with the following substances: human blood, all body fluids, secretions and excretions, non-intact skin, and mucous membranes. Standard precautions combine the major features of universal precautions, which reduce the risk of transmitting bloodborne pathogens, and body substance isolation, which reduces the risk of transmitting pathogens from moist body substances. Standard precautions are a fundamental principle supporting a system of safeguards designed to protect you, including engineering controls, personal protective equipment, work practice controls, housekeeping, and the hepatitis B vaccine. So now let's take a look at your first safeguard, engineering controls.
Hey Barb, these instruments in the autoclave, some of the packs are still wet. What do you think? Should we repack them and run them again?
Well, they're in such a hurry for them. They've called twice in the past 30 minutes. I think we can let them go.
Yeah, besides, they should have gone through the cycle.
Whoa, let's try that one again.
Hey Barb, these instruments in the autoclave, some of the packs are still wet. What do you think? Should we repack them and run them again?
Yeah, you better go ahead and do that. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Engineering controls are your first protective barrier against contact with blood and other infectious materials. They're systems provided by your employer to eliminate hazards at the source, like autoclaves, self-sheathing needles, sharps disposal containers, and biosafety cabinets. Yet some engineering controls will not protect you if you don't use them correctly, or if you don't use them at all. The same goes for our next safeguard, PPE.
It's not gonna hurt, is it?
That's gonna pinch now just a bit. There we go. That wasn't too bad now, was it?
Actually, it was terrible. You know why?
I wasn't wearing gloves.
That's right. The phlebotomist forgot the most basic type of personal protective equipment, gloves. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, protects you from contact with blood or other potentially infectious materials. So is this everything you expected it to be?
Well, it is a little complicated, but I think I'm catching on.
Oh, you're doing just fine. I'm very impressed. Hi, how are y'all? Now we're going to head down to the OR, and I think that you'll see... Excuse me, where are you headed?
Well, I have to deliver these food trays.
Oh, so why so much PPE?
Well, with HIV and everything, I figure better safe than sorry.
PPE must be appropriate for the task you're doing. That means that you should wear as much or as little as you anticipate you'll need to keep blood and other infectious materials from coming into contact with your skin, your mucous membranes, or your clothing. So, if you're delivering food trays, you don't usually need protective eyewear and a mask and a gown and gloves.
Oh, well, thanks. I was getting pretty hot anyway.
I'll bet you were. Come on, let's head on down to the OR. Now, as I was saying, you're going to see a lot of things down here that are... To maintain barrier protection, always remove torn or contaminated PPE as soon as possible. That is critical. Then wash your hands or other potentially contaminated areas of skin thoroughly. Your employer will provide whatever PPE you need and train you in how to use it. Your employer will also maintain, replace, and dispose of PPE free of charge. But your employer can't wear it for you. It's your job to make sure PPE fits well and to use it properly. When it comes to gloves, proper use means you should bandage any hand cuts before putting on gloves. Latex gloves used for medical, dental, or laboratory procedures are for single use only. Never reuse them. Heavy-duty utility gloves like these may be decontaminated and reused, but if they are cracked, torn, or damaged, throw them out.
Mr. Gibson! Mr. Gibson, are you okay? Mr. Gibson, can you hear me? I need help! Somebody call a code blue!
Even in an emergency, always avoid giving unprotected mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. The patient may have blood or other infectious materials, such as bloody vomit in the mouth, as hazardous as it is unappealing. And just 1 cubic centimeter of HPV-contaminated blood can contain 100 million infectious particles of HPV. Mechanical emergency respiratory devices and pocket masks are designed to protect you from the patient's saliva and body fluids, but they don't work if you can't find them. Ventilation devices should be located on every crash cart. In addition, ventilation equipment should be placed at the bedside of any patient who is likely to need resuscitative measures. Make sure you know where this equipment is kept and how to use it before you need it. With bloodborne pathogens around, you can't ever let your brain take a break. Most work practices are based on common sense and good hygiene. Always remove all PPE in the work area immediately after use and place in designated receptacle for disposal, laundering, or processing. And make sure you wash your hands, the most important work practice of all. Wash your hands anytime you have contact with infectious materials, before you put on gloves and when you take them off. Do not eat, drink, smoke, apply cosmetics or lip balms, or handle contact lenses in work areas where exposure may occur. Don't keep food or beverages in any area where it might be exposed to potentially infectious materials.
Hey, Marcia, want to grab a cup of coffee in the lounge?
Sure, I could use a break before the next procedure. Let me just wash up.
Sure.
What's wrong with this picture? She removed her gloves incorrectly, then removed her gown with bare hands, and instead of washing her hands thoroughly with soap and water, she only rinsed them. Remember to take PPE off properly, in the right order, and to wash hands thoroughly every time you touch a contaminated object. If a gown is contaminated, remove it first, being careful not to invert the sleeve and contaminate your clothing. Next, remove gloves, being careful not to touch the outside of the gloves. With both hands gloved, peel one glove off from top to bottom and hold it in the gloved hand. With the exposed hand, peel the second glove from the top, tucking the first glove inside the second. Dispose of the entire bundle promptly. Now you're ready to wash your hands, not rinse, wash. Wash your hands thoroughly under a stream of running water for at least 15 seconds. Use soap and plenty of friction. Wash under rings and fingernails, include wrists. Rinse completely. Then dry with a paper towel. Discard. Turn off faucet using a dry paper towel. Discard. If your work area has no hand washing facilities, your employer will supply antiseptic towelettes to use as a temporary measure only. You must still wash your hands with soap and running water as soon as possible. Never, ever dispose of used sharps anywhere except an appropriate, puncture-resistant, leak-proof sharps disposal container. No matter how rushed you are, before a sharps container gets too full, have it replaced by the appropriate person. To prevent needle sticks, do not bend, recap, shear, or break contaminated needles or other sharps. Where medically necessary, needles should be recapped using a mechanical device or one-handed method. Immediately after using, dispose of the contaminated sharp in a nearby appropriate container. When you're performing procedures involving blood or other potentially infectious materials, minimize spraying, spattering, splashing, or generation of droplets. A little planning and foresight can go a long way. And another important rule, never mouth pipette or suction blood or other potentially infectious materials. The reason should be pretty obvious.
Hey, Joe. Been a long day, hasn't it? Tell me about it.
Ouch! Never compact trash with your hands or your feet. You could get jabbed by a discarded sharp. While you're at it, don't let trash containers overflow in the first place. Hold the bag at the top and shake down. Trash and laundry bags may contain bloody materials and contaminated sharps. Never handle without gloves and carry bags away from your body. What's in the bag? Well, you can bet it's not my lunch. Fluorescent orange red labels, red bags like this, and warning signs are there to warn you that whatever is inside may contain blood or other potentially infectious materials, so beware. Environmental surfaces that don't look dirty can be heavily contaminated with infectious substances such as plasma or serum. And believe it or not, HBV can survive on surfaces dried and at room temperature for at least 1 week. That's why it's so important to make sure that you carefully follow your facility's plan for regular cleaning of environmental surfaces. If there is a spill of blood or other potentially infectious materials, the area should be cordoned off immediately and cleaned by someone trained and qualified to do so. Would you like to take a break?
Sure.
Let's go to the cafeteria.
Okay.
Hey, how's the orientation coming?
Oh, okay. I'm just a little nervous about the hepatitis B shot.
Hepatitis B? I wouldn't worry about that. It's AIDS you gotta be careful about.
Hepatitis B is nothing to sneeze at. It can make you extremely sick. It can even lead to liver cancer. And consider this, if you contact infectious material, the risk of your getting HBV is as high as 30%, whereas with HIV, the risk is just 0.4%. No matter what percentage the risk, the hepatitis B shots are a safe and effective way of protecting you from a serious illness, if you complete the series of shots. With your consent, your employer will provide the vaccine to you at no cost. Well, come on, we've got one more area to check out.
Ow! What's wrong? Are you all right? Oh, nothing. I'm okay.
When accidents happen, don't panic. Immediately wash exposed skin with soap and water. Flush exposed mucous membranes with water. Then report the incident to your supervisor as soon as possible. If you consent, your employer will provide you with a confidential medical evaluation, blood tests, post-exposure preventive treatment if available, and follow-up counseling. Well, that just about does it. So what do you think?
I think blood bugs, as you call them, are a lot more threatening than old Felix here. To protect myself against them, I've got to stay vigilant, never let my guard down, and work defensively. Try to see accidents coming and take measures to prevent them.
Anything else?
Yeah, teamwork. If we all work together, employer and employees, we can greatly reduce the risk of contracting bloodborne diseases. We don't have to fear the blood bug, or most bugs for that matter.
I couldn't have said it better myself.